The risks of scaling, sometimes your salespeople string you up by the balls and they'll have you spending money to fill their calendars up. Meanwhile, you don't have your tracking dialed in. You're getting absolutely burnt every single time you book a call onto their calendars and you have no idea. Sometimes that happens. In other instances, you start scaling, you try to gaslight yourself into thinking, I'm hiring A players, I'm hiring the best people I can afford. Your payroll's inflated more than you could possibly have ever considered, into the high hundreds of thousands. Maybe you even cracked $1 million in payroll, depending on who you are sitting here. And you're thinking to yourself, I got the best people I could possibly get. And then a couple months go by and you realize you hired a pack of fucking idiots that have started to run your business into the ground. In both of these situations, these are some of the risks of scaling. They become a highly politicized thing that involves emotions to make the necessary cuts. Everything starts going so much faster as you scale, and so it becomes a little bit more chaotic and a little less dialed in, and you have a little less clarity than you ever have before, and you've started the process to finally follow that age-old advice. Hand things off to people instead of doing it all yourself, and sometimes these things can blow back on you. In addition to stories like these, there are plenty more risks to scaling, and in this specific video, we're gonna be going through them. If you're new to the channel, all we talk about around here is cracking $1 million months. We don't make any income claims because we have no idea who the fuck you are and whether you literally have any probability to go out there and make any money at all. We're talking to people who are ideally already cracking a couple $100K a month. You might even already be at $1 million a month looking to tack on the next milli. You're in the right place if that's you. But again, no earning potential, no income claims. You're not gonna watch a fucking YouTube video and make buku bucks, okay? Moral of the story is, welcome back to the channel if you're already a subscriber. Without further ado, let's dive in. Just recently we had an Inner Circle member, that's part of Jeremy's Inner Circle group, joins in the month of July. And I start digging into their business and I find very quickly that they have no idea what they're doing from a tracking perspective. Their tracking is lagging and it's inaccurate at best, okay? Now to be clear, they're in the middle of scaling is what they tell me. So they go through the month of August just gassing the ad spend. As a matter of fact, they're not even really doing it from the perspective of everything's profitable, let's scale. They're doing it from the perspective of the sales team's gonna quit if their calendar's not full. And that's what the sales manager keeps telling this specific Inner Circle member. They just keep saying,
look, I got a few guys that are about to quit. You know, the calendars aren't full. We got to dial in the calendars. We got to get this thing cranking.
Okay? Salespeople get paid how? How do you pay your salespeople? Almost every organization we work with pays them on a gross percentage of the revenue that they can generate, typically off cash collected. Some of them even front cash, depending on a payment plan. But hopefully that's not you. Either way, moral of the story is, you're typically paying your sales team on gross commissions, okay? So whether you are technically netting any money every time you book on a call onto their calendars, they make money regardless. The incentives for the sales team inside of any inbound sales and advertising process that you've got. Book a call funnel, webinars, challenge funnels, DM ads, low ticket to high ticket, whatever it is, okay? The incentive, they make money regardless. They just have to close a few deals, okay? Now here's the thing, you'd think the incentives align to try to make sure that you net as much as possible, but there is literally no incentive beyond, I need these people to give me more calls onto my calendar so I don't have to sit around and do outbound calls all day. That's the only real incentive that exists from a net profit perspective that the sales team would give a fuck about. And most of them are oblivious to that. All they do is just consistently come to you and tell you, gotta fill the calendars, you gotta fill the calendars. So again, your tracking's not that dialed in, you start to press the gas and then bam, the month of August concludes, you bring in somebody, a forensic analysis is done on your accounting and your overall tracking that you've got. You finally have the clarity you need starting in the month of September. You look and you see you lost $111 every single time you booked a call into those closers' calendars. Now this was not with a light amount of ad spend, by the way. This was not with a small organization. A specific organization in the month of August, they put up $250,000 on to the VSL funnel. They went from about $7,000 a day in ad spend on just the VSL funnel all the way up to $12,000-ish a day in ad spend. Booking calls onto those closers' calendars.
Closers, of course, promising the world. Get us more calls, of course we'll generate more revenue.
Revenue technically came in, but it didn't exceed 250. Didn't exceed 250. That specific member, they lost $111 per call. Now, they go into the month of September absolutely fed up. They tell the sales team, go fuck yourself. Fire whoever you need to fire. Let whoever needs to quit, quit. We don't care. And they realized through the tracking and the accuracy of their reporting that obviously they weren't going to run their business that way. But because they didn't have tracking dialed in before that, they couldn't have made that decision in real time and they burnt just above about $100,000 in ad spend, just vaporized it. But all the salespeople walked away profitable that month. And businesses, I see this all the time, at slightly larger scales than that, at smaller scales than that, usually happens at smaller scales. Because respectfully, usually people who are at an aggressive level of daily ad spend or at the least a couple $100,000 in ad spend, they got their tracking dialed in for the most part, right? But that's the thing, that's kind of one of the risks of scaling, is this first point is you go too fast, okay? And as a result of going too fast, you put yourself in this position where everything gets bigger so much quicker than it ever has in the past, and it's not one thing at a given time. It all amplifies at once. Your refund rate might stay the same, but the quantity of refunds goes up. You have an illusion in your head when you look at it like it's a lot more people refunding than ever before, right? At the same time, your sales team's pressing you, hey, I got people that are gonna quit if we don't get more calendars. We gotta fill up all these spots on the calendar, fill them up. You're like, okay, yeah, go ahead, you're not even really looking, okay? There's holes that used to be this big that as you scale, they expand. I'll give you a crazy metaphor to just give you a perspective on this so you have a visual of it, okay? Did you know that any girl with a belly ring, if she gets pregnant, that little tiny hole that the belly ring is in, that piercing, expands. Look up a crazy photo. This was not a willful photo that I wanted to see myself, and editors, please do not share a photo of this. It's fucking yucky, okay? It's just yucky. But again, my point is like that little tiny piercing hole that you never otherwise would think would be as crazy looking as it is if they got pregnant, as an example. It's like that's what happens when you scale all the time. You got tiny little holes that you don't even realize, but all of a sudden as things just get bigger far faster, you're like, oh fuck, like look at that. Oh my God, I don't want it to look like that. And then because there's so many of these that typically happen at once, you don't follow the best practice that you should follow, which is you've got to prioritize what has the most impact, and you've got to also learn how to strategically place the right people in. Let's keep it real. As you scale up dramatically, okay, 15K a month, maybe even 25K a month payroll positions that you used to think, how the fuck are people buying those? Who's paying that, right? You're now, without even considering it, willful to throw that amount of money at people. And you think, well, hey, if I hired somebody in that specific range, they've obviously got to be the best. And you likely omit the fact that there's still some training, that there's an adaption curve that has to occur, that there's some accountability that these people typically need to be their actual best self. And even the people that you hire in these roles, like they'll openly admit these things. They don't hide it. Everybody loves being held accountable to be their best self when they're a true A player. But here's the illusion, right? Again, you're going so fast that you are willing to spend those amounts of money, and so you start to ask your network, hey, I need somebody to do so-and-so. I need this person who can handle that. Who you got? And you get some advice from people that, you loosely have heard revenue numbers from, and you think, well, this or that person, they're doing well. Let me get a referral from them. They are operating in the same kind of way where they're loosely gaining affiliation and a network as time passes, but they haven't really vetted these people out. They haven't really worked with these people at a high level. A lot of it's just hearsay. A lot of it's like, oh yeah, I know so-and-so, or I know such and such. Or that person, when you ask, they ask like 2 or 3 other people, and they're like, hey, do you know anybody? And it's like, people like to be helpful. And so the people that you ask these questions, you're like, they'll contribute somebody to you in most instances, but again, is that somebody actually good? Or if you can't find somebody from the network, and you look to bring in these people, you're gonna try to convince yourself that they're the best person that you could have hired for that specific role that you've now placed them in. We had this friend of ours, and I mean, my God, this was a catastrophic failure of a story, okay? This guy scales all the way up to $5+ million a month at damn near the speed of light. Scientists could have studied this man's growth and found some lessons there about quantum speed. Okay, this guy went from literally nothing, and in a year, that was how long it took, only a year, okay, a fraction of time, which by the way, again, I'm not in any way, shape, or form implying you're ever gonna even remotely come close to the speed of this, okay, but this guy gets $5 million a month in under a year, and holy shit, did he make some of the most dumbass decisions in hindsight that you could observe and reflect on to find lessons in, okay? Guy started traveling internationally at a high rate. Guy started to really fuck off, but why did he fuck off? Because he had the illusion, he gaslit himself into saying, no, he was at $1.3 million a month in payroll, just in payroll, $1.3 million a month in payroll. Of course, he has the illusion that he's got the best possible people he could have, from individuals in a trench level role to managers like middle managers, to high-level executives that are supposed to operate at each level and have the accountability in check. No, not at all. As a matter of fact, most of these people inside of these like mid-manager and executive roles made some of the most dumbass decisions that you could observe happening in a business at this scale. So much dumbass shit happened repeatedly, day in and day out. Now you had people like me that were in this business observing this stuff. And keep in mind, I'm not like on the payroll as an employee. It's like we're just like a contractor vendor in this case, operating as an agency in the deal. And we look, and this is one of my friends, one of my good friends. I tell the guy, I'm like, look, man, I think there's a bunch of dumbasses that you have in these roles. And like, here's why. Okay? And this guy completely dismisses the feedback of people like me. And it wasn't just me. There were a handful of other people that were in the business that all said the same thing. Now, this business not only absolutely implodes on itself, okay, and fails, does not exist today, okay? It failed at lightning speed. Can't even put to words how fast it felt like it unraveled, okay? And again, it falls under this umbrella lesson of the guy was going too fast, but from a different perspective. Rather than the going too fast being, well, let's load up the sales team's calendars without the visibility of whether this is profitable or not, to, okay, well, this guy thought he hired the right people. And by thinking he hired the right people, he operated from that perspective of, I can fuck off, you know? I can live the dream that we've all been told about as business owners that exists, that for some reason, very few of us have ever actually experienced in reality, of the ability to just completely detach. Okay, that we have perfect people in place, and we never have to do anything other than just get some kind of report sent to us about how fucking awesome everything is while it all still perpetually grows, okay? And I can't stress this enough. This is the other thing that you really want to make sure you understand is hand-me-down beliefs, okay? Hand-me-down beliefs. Perfect little bridge for you here with that last part. The illusion of what you've heard, trying to be materialized in what you build, can violently fuck you, okay? Violently fuck you. It puts you into a terrible place to project on to what's currently going on in your operation. Like, let's keep it real, right? It's like your operation, you got a tight-knit group of people that are running the team. You're pretty involved, right? Every time that you've tried to fuck off, you've learned the hard way that you can't, and you've therefore got to stay involved. Right? Which might just mean something as simple as holding people accountable, doing some training here and there. You're not a fucking coal miner, you know? Like, you're not having to go out there and do actual crazy hard work. You're having to click buttons. You're having to send voice notes. You're having to do Zoom calls here and there, you know? It's nothing remotely close to crazy. But what you start to do is you start to have this illusion that you project on to what your business could be, okay? And instead of trying to stay at a high level of involvement, what you start to do instead is you start to try to detach a bit, okay? And you see the effects, like you start to see the cracks in the wall as soon as you do every time. And the bad part is, this is where it kind of goes bad, there's a huge risk of scaling. Instead of acknowledging those cracks and being willing to jump back in, the feeling and desire to be able to get to the point where you can actually detach puts an illusion over that wall. It makes it so the cracks are invisible to you, when in reality they're getting worse and worse and worse by the day, okay? Big time risks when scaling happen all the time from handy-down beliefs. We have a CFO that just recently joined a client account of ours, okay? And we're all for CFOs. We love accountability, especially when it comes to reporting and tracking, and like, we love that kind of stuff. Not trying to in any way, shape, or form demonize CFOs, but in this story, the CFO is absolutely a demon for sure, okay? So the CFO comes in. We spent for this particular client a little over $700,000, like a hair over, okay? In a month, and it was very profitable. It was just shy of 4-to-1 profitability. Some funnels were a little higher, some funnels were a little lower. None of them were unprofitable. All of them were profitable. Now here's the thing. CFO comes in immediately with a narrative that Facebook, Instagram, Meta is a succubus and just sucks the life out of businesses that actively spend money on it. And it does nothing other than just leech and leech and leech, and that it should be something that's minimized and hedged against. Well, that's $700,000+ that was spent on Meta at a profitable rate. That business made more in that particular month than they ever had prior. They hit a record month from that $700K being spent. They had more profit that they were able to walk away from as a business than they ever had before because of that $700,000 spent on Meta, going into good old Mr. Zuckerberg's pockets, okay? But with a smile on our face, because again, it returned profitably. This CFO projecting this fucking belief from who knows where. It's like, because again, the reality of the situation, the actual wall itself in this case was sturdy as fuck. Okay, it was a beautiful wall made of solid gold. This CFO came in and she projected an illusion onto the wall that it was like slimy and gross and should be stayed away from. And we shouldn't have anything to do with that. You know, that was the illusion. we get word from the business owner going into the next month that the budget for that month was gonna be $75,000 on paid ads. I look at that text, I call the business owner, I go, what the fuck is this? What are you talking about? Like, why are you making this decision? Client goes, don't worry about it. We're gonna pull back from Facebook. We're gonna allocate more spend towards other channels. I want you to spend this much on this channel, this much on this channel, this much on this channel. And I go, client, you just spent, like, we can do all that too. But it's like, why are we rugging the budget for something that just hit your record month? And this client goes,
Oh, don't worry, we're gonna be able to make up for that organically, okay?
so I tell the client point blank, I go, this is dumb as fuck, this makes no sense, but hey, I understand right now in this whole like narrative that we're living in based on what you're believing in currently, I'm probably looked at as some kind of villain. So look, I understand you're probably not gonna listen to anything I'm saying, but I just wanna make it known, this is my take on this whole thing. Let's let this next month play out, but it's gonna be a hard set of lessons. Client's
It's like, oh, don't worry, we'll be fine.
dude, next month goes by and the client, just as anticipated, contracts hundreds of percent. Like, it was brutal, the lesson, okay? And you think like, oh, the CFO is gonna get fired and like this narrative is gonna just like go away and vaporize, but it's like, no, the client and the CFO and like the other executives in this business, they commit further onto that narrative of,
Oh, well, this happened because...
and it's like, oh my God. There's a great book, it's called Vital Lies and Simple Truths. And it talks about how when you're in pain psychologically or physically, we'll do whatever it takes, including lie to ourselves to retract ourselves from reality, create a false world to participate in that doesn't have the pain. Okay, that can be good in a lot of senses, but when it comes to business, like, you never want to lie to yourself. You want to be as tapped into reality as you can possibly fucking be at all times to make real-time decisions on how things actually are in the real world, not in some fucking fantasy land that you're projecting onto things or some evil hellscape that you're projecting onto things, when in reality, it's the exact opposite of whatever you're trying to put onto it. Hand-me-down beliefs come in so many different shapes and sizes. And we've seen it so many times over. I've told a story on this channel before about one of our clients from several years ago at this point. I think it's been almost 8-9 years at this point. And this guy had a belief with an offer that was at a couple $1,000,000 a month that like that specific offer type only has life for a year. Okay? There's not a single fucking thing in reality that agreed with that thesis. But this guy had a handy-down belief that that was the case because he heard it from so-and-so, who he believed to be credible and an authority figure, right? In reality, we were already like almost 2 years deep on that offer and it was fucking ripping still. Wasn't a thing in the world that could stop that thing. Besides the client absolutely sabotaging it from taking that belief and turning it into actions, okay? Beliefs cause wars. That's what you have to understand about how critical your beliefs really are for shaping behavior. And your organization has key people that also make decisions on behalf of the company where their beliefs also have to be monitored, managed, and maintained in a specific frame to benefit, okay? Because again, our actions follow whatever our beliefs are, okay? Handing down beliefs, insane in terms of the liability that they create. Let's go on to the last one here in this video, and let me be really clear when I say this, okay? This is not chronological. This isn't like some ranking system. Each one of these has a serious and significant weight. And I don't want to make one sound more important than the other, but I will say this. This next one, to me, based on how often I talk about it, is extreme for how much I typically see it hurting somebody, okay? And that's scaling too fast, okay? When you couple scaling too fast with this whole second half, which is not doing the math, okay? We have financial models for every client at every point in time, for every specific funnel. We have week-over-week tracking documents that we use. We have some proprietary AI that we also leverage to be able to have real-time analysis and create essentially like an automated alert system when real-time KPIs fall outside of the financial model KPIs without having to rely just on people to be able to say with like a lagging indicator, hey, this is outside of our KPI. And we then try to make real-time decisions on these things, like what needs to happen next, okay? If you couple like I'm spending too much too quickly without actually having done the math, you are gonna have a bad time. Because if you go from, let's use the example in this math here, okay? Let's say you're spending a wholesome $50,000 a month in ad spend, okay? A respectable amount of money, and you're ready to go balls to the wall here. You're ready to throw them onto the table and see if that ROI you've got at 50K holds at 200K. Got a little bit of extra cash and you're ready to throw it down, okay? So you start scaling down. That right there is a huge mistake. It's like go into your financial model and do the math and have what's called flex stats, okay? project the current stats to be a little bit worse than they currently are now. That cost per lead, that cost per call, make it a little higher in your financial model. Your show rates, make them a little worse. You got to remember, like I'll give you a perfect story of this exact situation for why this matters. We have a client, they were at, when we first met these people, they were at about 120K a month, okay? This guy, if you talk to him, he'll say, this guy changed my life. This guy helped me so much. We got him all the way up to just shy of 2 mil a month. Got him to about 1.6, 1.7 mil a month, give or take the month, okay? That entire time, we had the math dialed the fuck in. As we would go from like low tens of thousands of dollars in spend to like literally $500,000 a month in ad spend as an example on some months, we would factor things in like, okay, well, our audience is probable to change somewhere in this threshold of tens of thousands of dollars a month and a couple $100,000 a month. So we need to prepare our statistics, our systems, our sales team, our marketing assets to be able to sell to people that are more in a needs convinced category rather than an in-market demographic. And so rather than being in a reactive position, right, which is a big point of this third one that I'm making, which is like reactivity versus being proactive in comparison, okay? Every single time, like think about this, ready? We're going from tens of thousands a month to hundreds of thousands a month in ad spend. We're gonna grow the fuck out of that revenue as we scale up. There's gonna be a shift in audience type. Would I rather have that shift occur and then just have my sales team start to say things like,
Yeah, people are coming in a lot colder. Sales cycles seem a lot longer. We're noticing that there's just longer periods of time for people to make a decision, and it requires like a lot more convincing to get people over the fence.
would you rather then be like, okay, I gotta make all this shit for the needs convinced category. I better start studying all Jeremy's videos on the needs convinced category of cold markets. You know, that's reactive. You're behind if that's the case. But what's probable to occur in those situations is you're probable to still keep trying to gas the spend, okay? And when that occurs, that's where you fuck yourself in this specific example, okay? If you manage to understand there's like threshold math that I want you to become a master in, okay? Where you don't just think to yourself, oh, I spent 10K a month, time to fucking scale to 200K a month in ad spend, and everything's just gonna stay the exact same. I had a great video on my channel recently where I talked about what's called the scaling trough, right? Which is this illusion that like after you start to spend a little more that your ROAS is gonna hold. It's actually probable to drop. Like your stats are probable to get a little worse. And then that's where most people revert back to the lower level of spend. Whereas in comparison, if they pushed through that little trough where the ROI drops a little bit, there's a floor to it where all your stats all of a sudden hold. And you've adapted your sales and marketing systems around a slightly colder audience that's a bigger audience. Okay, it's kind of like fracking. In Texas, in all our oil fields here in that specific state in the United States, there used to be these big old oil pockets where all you had to do was so simple. All you had to do is just take a well, dig it down a few hundred feet. You're in a little pocket like a ocean, like a little mini ocean, okay? Not even a lake, a big old fucking pocket of oil. And you just suck it out of the ground, easy game, right? Well, through time, those big old pockets of oil just resting there, they ran out. And you know what they had to do instead? They had to introduce what's called fracking, right? Which has now caused some earthquakes throughout Texas and Oklahoma and like some of these little pocket areas where they do fracking at. Fracking's crazy. It's actually a really interesting process if you look up how it works. They don't just get to drill down straight. They kind of have to drill down sideways. The oil is in these little shelves and they take water in some instances because there's a lot of water content inside of most of these little pockets, right? They're just not as concentrated in terms of the oil. And they have to suck it out. They take the water, because some of these little pockets have upwards of 90% water and 10% is actually the oil they want. And they take the water out and they blast it right back down into the ground, and it creates like a huge pressure pocket that gets some of that other oil that's stuck in those shelves to a point where they can suck it out of the ground and extract it and then pump the water right back down. Dude, some of these things have caused geysers from how much pressure they've put under the ground. Some of them have caused little issues like this, right? You think the oil companies were just like, oh, let's just pull fracking out of our ass when they started to run out of the giant oil pockets they were just casually drilling into? It's like, no, dude, I bet they knew about fracking a decade before they ever actually needed to pull it out of their pocket. They just said, well, let's save that until shit gets a little worse, right? Well, not in your business. In your business, you just run square into the problems, you know? You just run fucking square into every wall that you come across. And every time your team, you ask them, you're like, how the fuck did we not anticipate getting fucked this hard? And your team's just like, well, I mean, you know? It's like, be a little proactive for once in the business, okay? You choose to be proactive. It's a big difference between just naturally being a reactive donkey versus for once trying to anticipate problems and building assets for things that may or may not occur. But when they occur, you already got all the shit you need. right? Couple some of these beliefs together. Like take that logic of,
oh, I want to detach and do fuck all in my business.
to, okay, I may not need to do every single thing in the business that's happening right now, but if I did start to have that executive foresight to be able to anticipate of these potential problems that I could run into or that I'm probable to run into, and I built out assets for them, I'd likely be in a much better spot. We'd already have everything we need. We could immediately adapt, and we could continue the scaling process at the rate we are. And that's where you really conclude to the fact that you simply just don't know what you don't know. You can take that logic and just say, you know, I genuinely don't know everything that there is that I'm probable to run into. My bet would be, though, that you do have a pretty good foresight on all the things that could fuck you, right? My bet would be that you do have the awareness that there's a finite amount of people at a given time that are probable to just convert when they see your ads, and that there's some of them that are gonna require a little more convincing and therefore need different assets from a marketing and sales perspective. Might require a completely different funnel, right? And it might require somebody in the business to actually say, I'm gonna take the time to start anticipating. I'm gonna take the time to start studying how I could get fucked and build those things out now instead of later, okay? So when things are good and you're trying to make them even better, you keep them at the rate they are in terms of things being good and things being better by anticipating what's probable to fuck you, okay? And in this video, I've covered 3 of these things, but of course there's so many more. And I can also help you lead yourself and your team to the awareness that's necessary to scale at the rate in which you likely want to grow. But I do that here on YouTube with a fraction of what I could otherwise teach you inside of my paid offers. Down in the description of this video and every video that I have, you'll find a few things. You'll find Jeremy's Inner Circle, which is an opportunity to join into a mastermind group. I do my one-on-one calls there. I do twice of those a month with you. We do weekly group calls. They're each about an hour-ish long, some of them a little longer, some of them just a tad less. They're on lessons built for rich people trying to get a fuckload richer, on problems just like this, but in extreme depth, okay? We also, of course, have 4 times a year a mastermind event. One day we come up here to the penthouse, the other day we go over to our facility. It's a big old rectangle, 220-inch screen on the wall, church chairs, some of the most comfortable chairs you'll ever sit in at an event, I'll assure you that. A pool table, perfectly leveled for the exact area it's in. A ping pong table, great networking. We have what we call the Flex Fest outside. Do those 4 times a year, the top of every quarter. We record them all. You got a vault full of all the history of this group. Got a very active group chat. Got Jeremy AI. There's also a program down in the link in the description. It's called Master Internet Marketing. It's a 7-week class, extremely in-depth. Each class is about 3 to 5 hours. There's homework libraries in between each live class. There's a lot of information in there. And if you're just looking to get your digital marketing skills sharpened up, it's a great program for you. We don't have any income qualifiers. We just got to make sure that you can actually afford the program. We'll sell it to you. Jeremy's Inner Circle, though, no, we got a lot of restrictions for that comparatively. So you got to apply to join that. You have questions for us. We got questions for you. Let's see if it's a good fit. Check out those links down in the description. And of course, either way, go check out some of the other videos here on the channel. They're all perfect for you if you're looking to scale up big time. And we go through all kinds of stuff. Go check out and see for yourself. And either way, get richer. Talk soon.